Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Monday. This is Seattle Now. Every year in the U.S., nearly 800,000 people suffer strokes and in some cases become paralyzed. Now, groundbreaking research from UW Medicine is aimed at changing that with a device implanted inside the skull of a local man to essentially help reconnect the signal. KUOW's Stephen Howie will tell us more in a minute, but first, let's get you caught up. Retail theft is one of the reasons Kroger said it's closing 6 Fred Meyer stores in the region. Now the King County Council wants to take a closer look at the issue. King County Council member Claudia Balducci last week proposed funding a retail theft task force that would include 2 detectives and 1 prosecuting attorney. By mid-October, Fred Meyer stores will close in Seattle, Kent, Everett, Tacoma, and Redmond. You might be ready for the heat to simmer down, but it's going to stay pretty warm for the rest of the week. Temperatures are expected to linger in the mid-80s until Thursday, when things will cool off just a bit. If you're going out, stay hydrated and don't forget the sunscreen. The heat advisory from the National Weather Service ends tomorrow morning. And your library card just got an upgrade. You can now use your Seattle Public Library card for free admission into more places. The Seattle Times reports that the Seattle Japanese Garden and the Washington Park Arboretum and the Volunteer Park Conservatory are now on the list. Library card holders can already reserve passes to places including the Museum of History and Industry, Wing Luke Museum, and the Aquarium. To secure up to 4 adult passes, use the library's online reservation system, but best show up early because they're limited. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. UW Medicine researchers reached an extraordinary milestone this summer. They successfully implanted a device onto the brain of a Seattle area man who'd suffered multiple strokes. They believe the device can help him recover movement in his arm and hand.
If you can imagine, your brain tells your hand something to do, like to use a fork to pick up food or something like that. You're getting messages and it's sending them directly to your hand. But for people who are impacted by a stroke, that message sometimes never gets to the hand.
KUOW editor and producer Stephen Howie has done some deep reporting on this breakthrough, and he's here now to tell us more. Steve Howie, thanks so much for coming on the show.
You got it.
So this was implanted into a Seattle area man. What can you tell us about him and his situation?
Okay, so on July 22nd, neurosurgeons inserted this device into a 52-year-old Seattle area mechanic. The patient, whose name hasn't been released, has had multiple strokes, but he had a stroke 4 years ago that really limited his ability to do his job and to use one side of his body. And they're hoping that this will help him, get back to his tools and get back to his profession.
He's the first person in the world to get this implant.
He is the first person, the first human, I should say, to have this particular device implanted into his skull.
Okay, how does it work?
Okay. It is 2 strips of silicone sheets that have a lot of electrodes in them, which are connected to a control device that's also implanted in kind of a spot in the skull. That is read by a laptop, and the idea is that this device, when it's turned on, can help people regain motor function. So they do it while he's doing physical therapy. So he's doing physical therapy, he's doing a certain act, and they are trying to help the brain rewire.
So get the signals connected.
Exactly.
Which doesn't happen following a stroke.
Exactly.
All right, so I understand part of this breakthrough has to do with something called neuroplasticity. Please explain that for our listeners.
It's the brain's ability to reorganize by forming new neural connections. So it's the ability of all of us to learn new things. Like, for example, I'm taking piano lessons at age 58. I'm like a 6-year-old playing the piano. But I can definitely feel that these are new pathways in my brain, going from trying to understand what the note is and read music, which I've never done, to getting that to push a key on a keyboard. So it's teaching your brain new things. Obviously, it's a lot easier. I wish I'd learned piano when I was when I was a young child, but here I am, right? And so people who are stroke victims, a lot of those pathways are blocked by the impact of the stroke. They're hoping that this device will help create new pathways and rewire the brain. Dr. Jeffrey Herron worked on the engineering side of the study. He's an associate professor of neurological surgery at the University of Washington. And here is what he said about how the implant can enhance the recovery process.
We're trying to basically make the brain more receptive to learning. Basically turn up the volume on how the brain, some of these brain areas are talking to each other, and then pairing that with rehab so that basically the brain can more effectively learn by involving more of the brain in the rehab.
Honestly, Howie, your piano example is a good one about neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
This has been described as a watershed moment. Tell me about that, why researchers believe this technology will help stroke patients recover lost function.
Yeah. One of the things that really struck me about researching this story was how long and complicated the process was to get to this point. I mean, it took them years to get approval for this. It goes back to research that they've been doing for decades about how to understand how the brain works, to get the brain to respond with stimulus to help it complete a task. They've been working in previous years with Parkinson's patients to reduce tremors in their hands. Also, they have electrodes implanted in the brains of epilepsy patients that can predict when they're going to have seizures. And one of the things that Dr. Jeffrey Ojeman, who's one of the leaders of the study, said is that it's super important in this case to let the patient control their response.
One of the things I expect is that people will modulate the training signal to make it work the best. And they'll do that kind of semi-consciously, just as you learn any motor skill. Like when you learn to ride a bike, if you overthink it, it doesn't work very well. But if you kind of let it happen, there's lots and lots of brain mechanisms to maximize improvement. And I think we're going to be able to tap into that, which is really cool.
This is fascinating, Stephen. Will this device stay in this man forever?
No. So they take it out after 9 months. So he goes through 6 weeks of pretty intensive physical therapy where they're trying to stimulate the connections. And then they want to leave it in to see how long that impact is going to last. And then they take it out after 9 months. And one of the reasons they take it out is because you can't have an MRI while this thing is in your head.
Because it's metal.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You've told us about this first patient, but this is part of a larger study. What are researchers hoping to achieve here?
I should mention that they're still recruiting patients for the study. So the first part of the study is called a safety trial, and that involves 4 patients. And the primary reason for that part is to make sure the implant works the way they think it will work, and that the stimulus is doing what they hope it will do. Also to see if the implant is safe inside a human skull. The second part of the study involves twice as many patients, so 8 patients, and that is to test whether this specific program that they've developed will help even more targeted, more specific stimulus response to neural firing. So it's more adaptive.
What else do you think listeners should know about this?
Almost 800,000 people a year suffer strokes in the U.S. And so 4 million people right now are living with the effects of strokes. And only 10% of those will fully recover from the effects of that stroke. So that leaves a huge percentage of people who are really debilitated and who could use something like this if it works.
It certainly is fascinating science. And for you, a personal connection as well, Stephen.
Yeah. So my brother, Philip, my older brother, my middle brother, I should say, Philip Howie, Catskill Phil as he's known, he had a stroke in 2013 in the wake of Hurricane Irene. He's a sculptor, and he was frantically trying to get his sculptures out of the way of the rising river water. And 2 days later, he had a stroke that impacted 70% of his brain. So he lost the use of his right side. He had to relearn how to speak. he converted himself to a right-handed to a left-handed sculptor.
Talk about neuroplasticity.
I know, right? And they're actually studying his brain to understand that, because it's really interesting in the way it changed his art. But he still doesn't have very much use of his right hand. He limps, and he still has trouble communicating, talking. And, that's despite years of therapy. So, I'm really interested in this, on a really personal level, as to whether it could help someone like my brother.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks so much, KUOW editor and producer Stephen Howie. Really appreciate your reporting and your story.
Thank you, Trish.
You can read Stephen's in-depth story on this and see photos at KUOW.org or on the KUOW app. Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. Today's episode was produced by Andy Hurst. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Vaughn Jones, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. See you soon.